Hey weirdos, I'm Ash.
And I'm Elena.
And this is Morbid.
It's Morbid in the morning.
Morbid in the morning.
And this is a redo, a remix, a remaster. Yeah. We decided to revisit the JonBenet Ramsey case because, one, there's been a little talk of it in the news lately with the possibility of DNA testing happening. And I just thought we could do a better job.
Yeah.
With this case.
I think the original JonBenet episodes were recorded when we were recording separately too, so the audio was like really terrible, and we just know that we could do it better.
Yeah, I thought there's, more stuff has come out. There was stuff that I just didn't talk about, or I felt like I rushed through. So I figured I would take the time to do what is going to be only a 2-part. It's not going to go further than that.
We'll see.
2 parts. I'm capping it at that because we're going to talk about the crime. We're going to talk about some of like the crazy stuff involved in the crime and the crime scene, the autopsy in part 1. And then part 2, we're going to really discuss the intruder theory. Mm-hmm. And we're going to discuss some of the suspects that have come out.
All right.
So just putting it out there right now, I do not know who killed JonBenet Ramsey.
Yeah.
I'm not going to say what my thoughts are on that because I don't know.
Yeah.
I wasn't there.
You guys, so
you have yours. I have mine. We all will think them in our heads, and then someday DNA will confirm one of them.
Yay.
That's all. But right now, I just want to say that John Ramsey, JonBenet's father, did launch a change.org petition where he asked the Colorado government to allow an independent agency to test DNA found at JonBenet's crime scene.
Okay.
And is pushing very hard to have that happen.
Wow.
So there's that. They're still petitioning as we speak police to allow Parabon nanolabs, which we've heard before. That's like a pretty big lab that will test like especially old DNA. They're petitioning to have them test the DNA. JonBenet's half-brother, John Andrew, is also helping his father try to get this push forward.
Nice.
And in August, they did, Joe Biden did put forward a law that they were like really, the Ramseys were really, really like strong supporters of, that allows victims' families to help reopen cold cases.
That's awesome.
So that was a big deal. John Ramsey told KIRO 7 News, quote, "We want to do whatever can be done technically and resource-wise to find the killer of our daughter. And if we do that and we can't, then we will have to live with it. But we do not, but to not do it is criminal and negligent and lazy. The Boulder police have said they are actively reviewing genetic DNA testing processes to try to make this happen, but it has not happened yet."
All right.
And I think there was a lot of like sensational news coming out about it recently that everyone's like, we're going to know within hours. What they were saying was if they give the DNA to Parabon nanolabs, they could potentially have an answer in hours.
Okay.
That's what they were saying.
But at this point, they have not been able to yet?
At this point, it looks like they have not been allowed to do that yet.
Given the green light or whatever.
I'll update if and when that happens, but yeah.
All right.
So I just wanted to start that, and now let's talk about JonBenet Ramsey. JonBenet Patricia Ramsey was born August 6, 1990 in Boulder, Colorado. She was born to JonBenet Ramsey and Patricia Patsy Ramsey. Together they had JonBenet, who was 6 at the time of this crime, and her brother Burke, who was 9 years old at the time of this crime. John was the president of Access Graphics, which is a computer company. They were, a very like well-off family. They lived in like this beautiful like Tudor-style home.
The home is beautiful.
Yeah, it's a really beautiful house. But apparently it's like a very maze-like house. A lot of their former housekeeper actually said that. We'll talk about her in the second part for sure. But she said it's like very labyrinthian. So it can be like very confusing to get around.
Okay.
But
not ideal.
Yeah. But Patricia was his second wife. He had 3 children from his first marriage, a son and 2 daughters. One daughter, Elizabeth, actually passed away in a 1992 car crash.
Oh, I remember that.
Yeah, so that's like
really sad.
A lot of tragedy.
Definitely.
Patricia, Patsy, was a former beauty queen from West Virginia. She had held the title of Miss West Virginia, so that's like a big deal. She was beautiful for sure.
Oh, yeah.
This was a big point of pride for her. She carried it down to her daughter, JonBenet, who also had entered pageants from a very young age, like baby.
Yeah.
JonBenet had won America's Royal Miss, Little Miss, Little Miss Charleroi, Little Miss Colorado, National Tiny Miss Beauty, Colorado State All-Star Kids Cover Girl. I think she's won more, but that's like a good lineup that I found.
There you go.
I'm not going to share my thoughts on pageants. Pageants are definitely not easy for a kid this age. They're not just them walking out and being like, yay, and then it's like, that's it. It's like a lot of hard work.
You've seen toddlers in tiaras. I know it.
Yeah, I have not, but...
Not you, I meant them.
But
I know for a fact you have
you're
not.
like, I know you have. She was wearing a lot of makeup, wore very interesting in adult costumes at times.
Did she have a flipper?
Yeah, I was just going to talk about that, actually. She also had her hair lightened.
Yeah.
It was like bleached. And I was just going to say kids that age usually wear flippers to cover missing teeth, which I never understood because it's normal and adorable for kids that are 6 to have missing teeth. That's like one of the hilarious and adorable parts of 6-year-olds.
It's not like you're like old Miss California, like showing up on stage with no teeth.
Well, that's the thing. So if these pageants are looking to truly find an adorable child who is age appropriate and not a baby who has been turned into an adult, then why would missing teeth matter in the judging process?
I would not happen to know.
Wouldn't it only help? Like, to me, that would only help because they're children and they should be looked at as children. And you should be like, oh my God, look at that cute little baby.
Yeah, 100%.
With her missing front teeth. Like, that's a baby. That's cute. We're supposed to be judging them based off of them being a child. But that to me just proves that they're being judged to look like an adult.
Yeah, 100%.
Which, again, I'm not going to share my thoughts on.
Yeah, that's why I just said, yeah. You know that I was almost a pageant baby?
I wouldn't allow that to happen.
No, I know. You know what's wild? My mom actually wouldn't allow it to happen. My grandma on my dad's side, like, really wanted me to do pageants. And my mom was like, I don't think so.
You know what? That checks out.
It does. It certainly
checks
does.
out.
I think, I'm not positive if my grandma on that side did pageants, but
she wanted you to.
she sure did.
Because you were a beautiful baby.
I don't know what happened.
I don't either. So there was definitely some pageant mom behavior that was really focused on later when this case broke. It is unfortunate that became the focus of this case, I think.
Yeah, because that shouldn't be the focus. The focus should be just the fact that JonBenet was killed.
Tough, which we all did it. We all looked at this and were like, what the fuck is going on there? Like, that was my first thought, was like, what is happening here?
I know that people get really upset now, like when you say it was a different time, but it's literally just a fact.
It truly was.
We all, as a collective society, maybe not all of us, but as a collective society, we all were different
growing
back then and growing to where we are now.
And I think we've got to a place where we can look at it a little more, like, a little differently. Exactly. And we can look at it like, I think we've all seen that the media doesn't give you the full story. And I think back then we were looking at it and going, holy shit, this is it.
Yeah.
That's all. Like, they're giving us all.
Very, very sensationalized.
Yeah. And it's like, I think now we are better equipped as a society, at least slightly, some of us.
Yes.
To look at it and go, okay, that is part of the story.
Sure.
But there's more to this, and I shouldn't really just take this at face value of what's splashed on a tabloid page.
Exactly. Like, let's dig a little deeper. Because I've seen, and I know you've seen in your research, like, particular sources, you double check it, and it's not even correct.
And it's not correct. That's the thing. So I think that's the reason, too, why we want to reduce some of these that we did even in the beginning of the podcast.
Absolutely.
Because we even look at things differently now.
Absolutely. We've grown.
By doing this podcast, I feel like I look at things differently. So that's why some of these are being redone, because it's just like, I can look at this differently and more complete now.
Yeah.
And I feel like I can give a better, I can give you guys something better to look at and make your own decision on.
Yeah, I mean, 3 to 4 years ago, like, you do change a lot, especially when you're doing this day in and day out.
Yeah. And I think I like to go into things now like less with like, this is what I think happened, even if it's, you know what I mean?
And more like, here are the facts, make your own decision.
It's like, I just want to try to give you what happened and be like, you guys have, you know, until we have definitive answers, this is all we can go off of.
Theory.
But no matter what, it's really hard to argue against the fact that there was 100% some pageant mom behavior here.
Yeah, like a 6-year-old's hair, in my opinion, and I would hope a lot more people's opinion, should not be lightened.
No, I don't agree with that at all. Like, I agree with you.
Yeah.
And a lot of the pictures are very disturbing to look at, in my opinion. That's just me. Mm-hmm. I think a lot of them are very disturbing, but that doesn't mean that anybody, you know, that doesn't make anybody a killer.
No,
it just
absolutely
makes,
not.
You know, a questionable choice. That's all. But a story that did stick with me that I read in a couple of sources was that her friend actually came over once and she noticed JonBenet's numerous trophies and crowns and all that. And they were in this very like big case all displayed. And the friend was like, wow, those are so pretty. Like, wow.
Yeah, like tiaras.
And she said this to JonBenet, and JonBenet said, they're not really mine. They're more my mom's trophies.
That's
that
sad.
broke my heart into pieces. And that was like, ugh. Yeah. That's bad.
Well, and to have that realization at like 5, 6 years old.
Yeah, like this isn't for me. This is for my mom. And it's like, I do know that happens a lot, that people will try to live vicariously through their kids.
Yeah.
Don't do it.
Yeah. I do
it.
think a lot of times it happens and parents don't realize
well,
that
that's the thing.
it.
Sometimes I think it's completely, like, I think
blind.
I believe that Patsy probably convinced herself that JonBenet loved doing this.
Absolutely.
Because she loved doing this. Mm-hmm. So it's...
And it's a thing they can do together. La.
But, you know, there's that. Now, people who knew the family very well say that she wasn't forced to perform.
Yeah.
She wasn't forced to do this. She just loved being on stage. She could be shy and quiet outside of that, but she really loved the stage. She, like, flourished on there. Try theater.
Yeah.
According to the Denver Post, family members said about JonBenet, one of her uncles actually said, the beauty pageant thing, that was a very, very small part of her life. 99% of her life was spent as a typical 6-year-old. What we see on TV and in pictures, that's not who JonBenet was.
And that's sad.
Yeah.
And I think that's another thing that the media does is I'm sure there are photos of JonBenet where she looked like JonBenet.
Exactly.
She didn't look like, she wasn't all done up in a big glitzy crown and dress and everything. Like,
exactly.
Let's show a picture of her and her friends, you know?
I
like,
know,
let's show a school picture.
Yeah, and it's like, that's the thing. And they do that with a lot of these cases where they'll only show certain photos that kind of go to a certain image. And it's like, you know, she's a brutally murdered 6-year-old.
Yeah.
Can we show photos of her that are like you said, like her just being a 6-year-old?
Right.
Like, do we have to splash all those to further perpetuate, like, pedophiles and like people who will take those in a way that they shouldn't? Like, we really don't need to do that. Like, just show her as a 6-year-old so everybody can be like, wow, that, like, start, like, actually grieve for her.
Right.
But, you know, whatever. Now, in the same article, she's described as being a very loving, spunky, and very kind child. She loved fruit roll-ups and anything with sparkles. She also would give presents to Santa to thank him for gifts that he had gotten her.
That's
like,
so
she was that sweet. Her teachers and friends at school all described her as positive, very intelligent. Neighbors said she was helpful and just adorable, like a sweet little light to have around.
Yeah.
And I'll get into like there's like Santa theories and stuff in this. That's going to happen in part 2.
Oh, I don't even remember those.
Yeah, there's one man, Bill McReynolds, who got like put on the suspect list by theorists, basically. And he was like this, he would play Santa at the parties. And actually she gave him and I'll get into this more in part 2, but I'll just mention it. She had given him a vial of gold glitter.
Oh.
And he took it into his heart surgery with him.
Yeah.
Because he said it was like, he was like, she just like, her kindness really touched me. Like she was just, and he was like old.
Whatever.
And he talked about it later and was like, she was just like, she really like touched me. She was just like this sweet little girl and like gave me that because she thought I was Santa.
People love to read into things.
And we'll get more into that whole theory again. But it's kind of a bummer that like everything gets twisted in this case, no matter what. So December 25th, 1996, Patricia, John, JonBenet, and Burke went to a Christmas party at a very close family friend's home. This home was at the White's home. That was Fleet and Priscilla White. They were very close family friends. JonBenet, she partied, she had some food, she hung out, she opened presents. Then she fell asleep on the way home in the car. So her parents, did what every parent has done before. John carried his sleeping daughter to her bedroom.
Yeah.
She went to sleep wearing white long john type leggings and a white long sleeve t-shirt with a silver sequin star on the front of it.
Cute.
Now, December 26th, 1996, this was very early. According to Patricia, she woke up in the 5 o'clock hour in the morning, and she found a 2.5-page handwritten ransom note on a staircase at the bottom of the staircase when she went down there. Woke up, brushed her teeth, walked down there. This is what she finds. The note claimed to be from a kidnapper who claimed that they had JonBenet. They wanted money for her safe return, but it was a very strange, long, threatening, weird ransom note.
Yeah.
It was then that she said she ran upstairs, found that JonBenet was not in her bed, and then woke up John.
Mm-hmm.
Now, this is what the ransom note said. Mr. Ramsey, listen carefully. We are a group of individuals that represent a small foreign faction. We respect your business, but not the country that it serves. At this time, we have your daughter in our possession. She is safe and unharmed, and if you want her to see 1997, you must follow our instructions to the letter. You will withdraw $118,000 from your account.
Remember that number.
$100,000 will be in $100 bills, and the remaining $18,000 in $20 bills. Make sure that you bring an adequate size attaché to the bank. When you get home, you will put the money in a brown paper bag. I will call you between 8 and 10 a.m. tomorrow to instruct you on delivery. The delivery will be exhausting, so I advise you to be rested. If we monitor you getting the money early, we might call you early to arrange an earlier delivery of the money and hence an earlier pickup delivery, and that was like kind of X'd out, pickup of your daughter. Any deviation of my instructions will result in the immediate execution of your daughter. You will be denied her remains for proper burial. The two gentlemen watching over your daughter do not particularly like you, so I advise you do not provoke them. Speaking to anyone about your situation, such as police, FBI, etc., will result in your daughter being beheaded. If we catch you talking to a stray dog, she dies. If you alert bank authorities, she dies. If the money is in any way marked or tampered with, she dies. You will be scanned for electronic devices, and if any are found, she dies. You can try to deceive us, but be warned that we are familiar with law enforcement countermeasures and tactics. You stand a 99% chance of killing your daughter if you try to outsmart us. Follow our instructions, and you stand a 100% chance of getting her back. You and your family are under constant scrutiny as well as the authorities. Don't try to grow a brain, John. You are not the only fat cat around, so don't think that killing will be difficult. Don't underestimate us, John. Use that good Southern common sense of yours. It's up to you now, John.
Jesus.
And then it says victory, exclamation point, SBTC.
SBTC.
There's so I saw a lot of people talking about how this seems like something that they got out of like a movie.
Like a detective magazine.
It's outrageously long. A lot of people mentioned, why did they say like bring an adequate size attaché to the bank? Like, why does that matter?
Right.
Why would you even write that?
What even is an attaché?
Like a bag of some, like something to put the money in?
And I'm like, you're sitting here kidnapping a child and you have time to write out attaché.
That's the thing. And it's like, and then what was the other, I saw in a couple of sources, they were talking about like, be well rested.
Like, how is he going to be well rested? You've kidnapped his child.
And also like, why do you care?
Yeah.
Like, why does that matter? That's a weird thing to write. The $118,000 is the strangest amount and very low for a ransom of an actual human child.
Yeah.
There's also the, like, when they say, hold on, let me see when they say you stand a 99% chance of killing your daughter if you try to outsmart us.
Mm-hmm.
Why are you only putting it at 99%?
Right. Like you've said, if he tries to outsmart you, this is going to happen. This is going to happen. This is going to happen.
But now you're being like, there's a 1% chance you could fucking outsmart us. It's like, who's going to give that up? Like, these guys are being like, we'll fucking kill your daughter. Don't fucking try to fuck with us. And then they're like, but you have a 1% chance of fucking outsmarting us.
I have never, ever, ever thought that this letter was real.
No, I don't at all. And then people have pointed out that it begins with Mr. Ramsey, but then at the end it says, don't try to grow a brain, John.
Right.
So suddenly we're on a first name basis. You started this out with Mr. Ramsey.
Well, and what about why wouldn't you write Mr. and Mrs. Ramsey?
Oh, don't worry. They wrote that in the practice note.
Yeah.
They wrote Mr. and Mrs. Ramsey, but this one's only to Mr. Ramsey. They also, it's weird. I saw people pointing out that it's weird that they said, we respect your business.
Because you don't. You said we don't like your business and we don't like who you work with.
And also, like, again, if you kidnapped his daughter for ransom and you're claiming you're going to behead her.
Right.
Like, and you're saying, like, we respect your business. Like, why would you even let that out if you did? Like, it's just a very strange, none of it makes sense.
No.
At all.
No. According to crime data, the average home break-in lasts between 8 and 10 minutes, which is probably the most terrifying data that I've ever heard. But that is exactly why you need a home security system that responds quickly and forcefully. For me and my family, that is SimpliSafe Home Security. At SimpliSafe, your safety is the only thing that matters. They protect you with cutting-edge security technology powered by 24/7 professional monitoring agents who always have your back. I love SimpliSafe because I love the fact that if I hear a noise outside and I'm like home by myself, or even if I'm not and I'm just freaked out, all I have to do is literally click the SimpliSafe app on my phone, click the camera outside, and I can see everything. Everything is like crystal clear. And a lot of times every time it's just an animal or something like that. And I can see that and it makes me feel better. Because the other thing is, anytime it detects motion, any of your cameras, it records that motion so you can actually see what's going on. With 24/7 professional monitoring, SimpliSafe's agents call you the moment that a threat is detected and dispatch police or first responders in an emergency, even if you're not home, even if you can't be reached. SimpliSafe blankets your home in protection with advanced sensors for every room, every window, every door. There are HD security cameras for inside your home and outside your home, smarter ways to detect motion that only alert you when a threat is real, and even hazard sensors that instantly detect fires, floods, and other threats to your home. I think those are great to have in general, but especially if you're somebody that's not home super often, maybe you travel for work or something like that, you know while you're gone that your home is safe. Their monitoring experts use proprietary advanced response technology to visually confirm when a break-in is real so you can get the highest priority police dispatch. My biggest thing about SimpliSafe that I love is honestly just the peace of mind. You know that somebody's there for you when you need them and you know what's going on even if you're not home anytime. Customize the perfect system for your home in just a few minutes at simplisafe.com/morbid. Go today and claim a free indoor security camera plus 20% off with an interactive monitoring. Go to simplisafe.com/morbid. There is no safe like SimpliSafe. I have always been a big fan of planning ahead, scheduling trips months in advance, plotting out my next career move, figuring out what I'm doing for dinner while I'm still eating breakfast. But I never thought too much about planning for kids, and that's the thing. Knowledge is power, and when you know more, you can make better decisions for your body, your health, and your future. There aren't many bigger decisions than having a kid, but for many women, their fertility is a big question mark. That is why modern fertility was created. It is an easy and affordable way to test your fertility hormones at home with a simple finger prick. Mail it in with a prepaid label and you'll get your personalized results within 10 days. You'll also get insight into your hormone levels, your ovarian reserve, which is how many eggs you have compared to other women your age, and other important fertility factors. The results go deep into what every hormone means, and you can also download the results to review with your doctor for next steps. Traditional testing for this can cost over $600, but modern fertility gets you the same info at a fraction of the price. And if you go into modernfertility.com/morbid30, you can get $30 off of your test. Plus, you can get reimbursed for that test through your FSA or your HSA. If you want kids today, or even maybe someday in the future, clinically sound info about your body can help you make the decision that's right for you. Right now, Modern Fertility is offering our listeners $30 off the test when you go to modernfertility.com/morbid30. This is a limited time offer for $30 off. That means your test will cost $169 instead of the hundreds or the thousands that it could cost at a doctor's office. Get $30 off your fertility test when you go to modernfertility.com/morbid30. modernfertility.com/morbid30.
So there was a partial draft of the note found in the home, written on Patsy's notepad.
Weird.
This note came from a notepad, Patsy's notepad that was in the home. It was written by a pen that was on the counter. So they didn't come in with paper and a pen. They found one in the house.
Which, again, if you're going in to kidnap a child, like, you would think quickly, you would come prepared with a ransom note.
That's the thing. You're not going to write the ransom note in the house during all the mayhem.
No.
You would bring the ransom note with you.
Right. And you would not leave the pen behind that you used to write the ransom note.
Yeah. These are the pieces of the puzzle that people... Peter Piper picked a peck. Well, I said a lot of pieces.
You did.
This is the piece of the puzzle that people do not understand.
Yeah.
How you explain this part, and I don't.
And the practice.
That's the thing.
And I would love to know if it was ever asked, like, where do you keep this pen? Or, not this pen, excuse me, this pad of paper.
They did ask. It was sitting on the counter in like a little, like the pen was in a little cup, and it was like out there.
Okay.
But on another piece of paper in the pad, Detective Jeff Kithart, who was the handwriting expert for the Boulder police, later found a started and abandoned ransom note that said, and it said, one of them said Mr. and Mrs. and then a line. And it appeared that they had started to write an R but had stopped. It was like a line to begin an R.
Sure.
So the first one says Mr. and Mrs. Like, not only did you come into this house without a ransom note and took the time to write this ransom note there, but you didn't even know who you were writing it to.
Right.
Like, you actually at first were like, I'm going to write it to both of them. Then you were like, no, I'm going to write it to him.
Like,
Why wouldn't you write it to both of them?
Well, that's the thing.
No.
Because it wouldn't fit the narrative that this was business.
Yeah. Now, John received a bonus of exactly $118,000 for that Christmas.
Yeah.
Which people have pointed to, and I originally pointed to as, there you go. That's how would anybody know that? Mm-hmm. But I will say the bank statement was out on the counter.
Okay.
So someone could have seen the amount deposited, and they could have used that as like, and here's my thought process on that, because I'm just trying to give all angles here just
Absolutely.
with facts. They could, whatever happened here, whoever did this, there was no ransom ever this was never a kidnapping.
No.
In my opinion, this wasn't a kidnapping that went bad. This was never a kidnapping. They would have come into the house with a ransom note, the end.
Right.
So this was all supposed to be staged. So they might have just looked at that 118 and were like, all right, use that number.
Right.
Like, it's just like, they didn't want that money. They didn't think they were getting that money.
No.
They never called to get that money.
No.
There just was never that happening. So if this is an intruder, then they could have looked, known they had to do this quick, and looked at that and said, okay, $118,000 just went into his bank account. I'm going to write that. Like,
Exactly.
they could have just done that.
Exactly.
Or it can be someone closer that knew that money was there, and that could have been like a business, you know?
Yeah.
But there's that.
Wouldn't you also think, though, I don't know about it was the bank slip on the table, but wouldn't you think that you would ask for more, because you're like, oh, if he just deposited that much into his account,
Then he must have more.
He probably has money, and like, you're looking around this beautiful home.
That's the thing. The 118 is a very strange
Even if you did see that on the table, right? Like,
but exactly. But then it's like, if this is like somebody who hates his business and is like a business rival, maybe that's like a pinpoint to be like
I was supposed to
we
get
know
that
what your
bonus.
Christmas bonus is.
Okay.
That's what we want for your daughter. But it's, again, very strange, because it's like, for a human, that is a very low ransom.
It is.
And for somebody who is wealthy.
Well, and that's the thing. Like, if you know him and you know him well, you know that he's wealthy, and why wouldn't you shoot your shot to get more?
Yeah. That's the thing.
In my opinion.
No, it's true. It doesn't
It doesn't make a lot of sense.
The other thing is, this is a fucking long note.
Yeah.
Ransom notes are not long.
Did you say it took like 21 minutes to write?
It took 21 minutes to write this in the house.
That is crazy.
And it was 2.5 pages long.
Yeah, no, like usually a ransom note is like a piece of paper.
The FBI literally said that this is an unprecedented ransom note. They've never seen something like that before.
Because, yeah.
Nothing. And in 2015, former Boulder, Colorado Police Chief Mark Beckner said, quote, "The FBI told us they'd never seen a 2.5-page ransom note. No note has ever been written at the scene and then left at the scene with the dead victim at the scene other than this case."
And wouldn't you also think that you would take the practice note with you?
That's one.
Or throw it in the trash even?
Do something.
Right.
And also, if you are now trying to make this, like, get the money, like if you're really trying to like stage this, you would take her out of the house.
Of course you would.
So that you could still pretend that she was alive. Mm-hmm. You wouldn't leave her in the house so that they find her and then the ransom thing is over.
Right.
Unless your thought process is, we don't actually want the money, we just want to hurt him and we want him to find his daughter.
Yeah.
There's sides, but to me it's strange.
But why would you go through the whole entire business?
Exactly.
Like, no.
And why would you even write the ransom
I just think it would be like a completely, if you were going to sit down and write a letter, and we all know that she was in the basement, I think you would write a very different, cruel letter. Like,
right?
Like, here are the steps to go find your daughter.
That's the thing.
Terrible, you know?
And again, like, that's a long time to sit in someone's home in the middle of the night.
Right.
After killing their 6-year-old daughter.
Yeah.
And just taking 21 minutes to write a note.
And presumably,
like,
and I know you're going to get into this, presumably also stopping for a snack.
Yeah. Or just like, it's very strange. It's very strange. And again, 21 minutes, like 21, what intruder does that?
No.
That's a lot of people have that's the part that people are having trouble wrapping their brain around.
Of course.
And I continue to have trouble wrapping my brain around it. Some of this stuff you can sit there and go, okay, I can go to an intruder theory with this. Like, I can go somewhere else with this. But this, I don't understand this.
No.
But like, I mean, strange things happen, but this is real strange. So experts think the note writer intended to disguise their natural handwriting. Mm-hmm. They don't think that this was their organic handwriting. They were trying to disguise it. A 1997 Vanity Fair article spoke to, quote, an investigator closely involved with the testing of the ransom note. And they said that they analyzed 74 handwriting samples, and Patricia Ramsey's handwriting was the only sample that, quote, set off alarm bells.
Oh.
So there's that. In 2001, handwriting analysts Larry Ziegler and Gideon Epstein thought Patricia could be the writer of the note.
Okay.
Colorado Bureau of Investigation report said, quote, and this is the Colorado Bureau of Investigation's report, said, quote, there are indications that the author of the ransom note is Patricia Ramsey.
Okay.
So there is a lot of people looking at it and saying that they believe that she might have written it. But on the other hand, handwriting analysis can be
a little funky.
Iffy.
Yeah. And and even in their reports, like, it's not definitive. It's
none of them are saying she is absolutely 100%.
Exactly.
But
weird.
If you look at her handwriting next to this handwriting, it's pretty close. Yeah. And there's a lot of little things, quirks, handwriting quirks that they look at that are the same throughout.
I remember watching, I think it was a few years ago. I actually think it was right around the time that you had covered this case. I remember seeing the handwriting myself.
Yeah.
And the comparison, it's very similar.
It is. But then you have to, these are the things that you can look at both sides.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because they're not definitive, but they are slightly damning in some ways. Mm-hmm. So it's like one of those things.
And again, like what that person wrote could set off alarm bells.
Yeah, exactly. So there's that. That is a thing. And that has remained a thing, that her handwriting is very similar. It's the only one that made them really go,
Did she ever say anything about that you know of?
She's always denied any of that. And would say the same thing we're saying, that like people's handwriting can look, and if they were disguising their handwriting, then
Yeah.
That's not my handwriting.
Right.
So there's that.
And people do have similar handwriting.
Oh, for sure. Absolutely. Now, Patsy called 911 at 5:52 a.m. After she got, and we're going to get into the 911 call, but after she called, she immediately called friends and family right after. The note said specifically not to do any of that or your daughter dies.
Right.
And that we are watching you.
Like monitoring.
I get that this may just be instinct, that you need to call people because you're panicking.
Yeah.
But if a note says your daughter is going to be beheaded and we're watching you, don't call anyone except 911.
Yeah.
Like, get a police officer there. You know what I mean? Like, I understand that. And that's the other thing about this case is it's easy to look on the outside and say, why did you do this?
But we don't know what
when you're in the actual panic of like your child being missing. So you go, okay, some of these things can be a hysterical parent.
Absolutely.
That just makes that decision. Other things, questionable. For sure. Now, Kimberly Archuleta was the 911 operator that took the Ramsey phone call that morning. She told Kimberly Archuleta that she wasn't sure how long her daughter had been missing and was literally begging police to get there. It's a very harrowing 911 call. You can listen to it. She sounds absolutely terrified in the 911 call. Before she hangs up the phone, you can hear her kind of like mumble to herself, like, help me, Jesus, help me.
Yeah.
And she never says JonBenet's name. She never says her name is JonBenet Ramsey. She also hung up the phone very abruptly. Didn't wait for instructions, didn't wait for them to say, hang on the phone with me until the police get there. She just, down goes the phone.
Which is, again, definitely weird. But
Yeah.
You're panicking. You're trying to run around. I don't know. Yeah, I don't even know if she woke John up at this point.
Now, this is one that people can definitely look at different ways. I don't understand that.
Yeah, and you have kids, obviously.
I can say your lifeline would be 911 at that point.
Absolutely.
And you would be like, I would be on there until the police got there.
Yeah.
Just to be like, I don't want to lose you. I don't want them to get lost on the way here. Police keep telling me they're coming. Tell me that they're outside. Tell me that they're here. Like, that would be my thought, I would think. Because that would be like, just you're safe. Like, somebody needs to get here and help us.
Yeah.
And if you hang up, you've ended that lifeline and you just have to wait to see when they show up. And it's like, I would want somebody being like, they're around the corner. They're on your street. They're pulling in your driveway. They're coming up your walkway. They're in your house. Like, you know, like, I want to hear everything.
They will do that.
They will. And usually they tell you, stay on the line with me until they're in your house.
Exactly.
So Archuleta, the operator, actually told Dateline that she immediately thought something wasn't right about the call. She said that the end of the call was strange because, again, she ended the call abruptly. And she didn't say anything that indicated an end to the call. And the phone didn't actually disconnect. She said, like, it just kind of went back on the cradle, but didn't actually disconnect. And because remember, this is a landline. Yeah. This is back in the 90s.
Oh, I'm picturing like my old kitchen phone.
Yeah. So Archuleta claims she heard not only John and Patricia speaking muffled right after that she put down that phone, but she heard a third voice that was a little more faint. Now, this is strange because they claim later that Burke, who was the only other person in the house, the 9-year-old, was asleep during this call. He was not near them or awake at this time. So people have listened to the audio of this call, lots of different experts, and they hear various things in these muffled voices a little bit, but it's all pretty much the same. There's not a lot of variation with what they hear. They hear a couple of different things. It's a little, when you listen to it with an untrained ear, I think it's a little like EVPs where you can probably hear what you want to hear if you try hard enough. But mainly what they hear is a male voice who is thought to be John Ramsey saying angrily, "We're not speaking to you." And then they hear a female voice thought to be Patsy say, "Help me, Jesus, help me, Jesus." Then they hear a young male child say, "Well, what did you find?" Yeah. Now, also, according to an article by Bella Brennan, Kim, the 911 operator, was quoted as saying about Patsy, quote, "If you hear the frantic in her voice as she's speaking to me, where she couldn't even answer my questions, it immediately stopped. It sounded like she said, 'Okay, we've called the police, now what?'" And that disturbed me.
Yeah, of course.
Because she said basically that panic, that phone went down. She thought she hung it up, and then she turned and said, "We called the police, now what?"
Yep.
So, Kim said, "So I remained on the phone trying to listen to what was being said. It sounded like there were 2 voices in the room, maybe 3, different ones. I had a bad feeling about this. To me, it sounded rehearsed."
Oy.
She said, "One of the reasons why I even stayed on until they disconnected was because there were things being said that people needed to know. It was never addressed. I think it really would have turned the case around."
Probably.
Now, apparently later, when Archuleta got the news, Kim, that JonBenet was found in her home brutally murdered, because she left that shift, obviously not knowing how that ended.
And you said that, I think we were talking about this before. You said
That
it
was
the
her last call of her shift. She said she was inconsolable when she found out she was murdered.
Yeah.
And she kept telling her boss and her family that something bothered her about that call. And she told them they had to tell authorities to listen to the end of the call. Because she was like, now it was weighing on me. Like, they found that child dead in her home. Like, I knew something was weird with that call. They ended up sending the tape to aerospace technicians, and they declared that there were 3 different voices at the end of that call, those aerospace technicians. And after Patsy had meant to hang up, that's when they heard it. Apparently, a ton of the technicians at aerospace all listened to the call by themselves, like independently. All of them said they heard the exact same conversation.
Wow.
So, and they take away background noise there,
Yeah.
and they really clean the audio a little bit. So they called in the Boulder police, who sent Detective Melissa Hickman to listen at aerospace. She listened independently as well. They did not tell her what they heard. They sent her into a room and said, "Listen to this, tell us what you hear." They had all heard the same conversation, including Detective Hickman.
I remember listening to the 911 call again when that documentary came out, and I heard the exact same thing.
Yeah, and now that we have that conversation, it's hard to hear anything else, which can be a little confirmation biasy.
Yep.
But it sounds like it. And the 3 distinct voices do sound
It's for
like they're
sure.
on there, because you do hear the
Deep.
of a man, you hear the Patsy literally upset,
And you hear a child.
and you hear a little child voice.
And definitely like a male child.
And they all said the same thing. "We're not speaking to you. Help me, Jesus. Help me, Jesus."
What did you
find?
And that, what did you find? Just like, it just creeps me out.
And we're going to mention it again, but when everybody shows up, Burke is asleep and sleeps through all of it. And people go into the room and look, and they see that he's just in his bed asleep. He never woke up through the chaos in the house. And so a lot of people are like, was he just told to lay there and pretend to be asleep through this whole thing?
Yeah.
And was that him on the tape and he was awake? Because they claimed he never woke up.
Right.
They had to wake him up.
Yeah.
Again, that's a theory,
Yeah.
but whatever. So another interesting note is that Patsy told Archuleta during the 911 call, and you can hear it when you listen to the call, that the note said, she goes, "It says SBTC victory." That's all she tells her about the note, is that it says that. But she told police later, "I only read the first line of the note. Before I ran up to look for JonBenet and called John, I dropped the note back where it was." And John said he moved the note away. So how did she know that at the end of the note it said SPTC victory?
Right. Unless
she happened to see that.
Right. Or unless John said that in passing and was like, what the fuck would that mean?
That could have been it. They could have had a conversation before the 911 call that she just didn't recall. She could have quickly seen the SBTC at the end. That would be a little strange because it's a 2.5-page note, and she said she only saw the first line, so she would have had to flick through to the end of the note. Just giving all angles here.
Yeah.
But interestingly, a 911 call came in 3 days before this from the Ramsey household.
Did you say this last time?
I don't know if I did, to be honest.
I don't know if I remember this.
It was at 6:48 p.m. on December 23rd. And the operator answered, and no one said anything, then hung up the phone.
Oh.
Police were dispatched to the home, but no report was made.
Okay. A report should always be made.
Yeah, I was like, that was weird. That's just a strange little...
I know that, like, I have friends. I have a friend who literally Snapchatted me the other day, like, oh, it's 8:35, and, like, my kid's already called 911. Like,
Oh,
great.
yeah. Yeah, because I had friends who did that before, and the police showed up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Kids do.
They do.
Kids do the 911 calls.
Kids do that.
With my schedule and how I'm always on the go, I really don't have a ton of time to do the things I usually like to do, like reading. And that is exactly why I love Audible. Audible offers an incredible selection of audiobooks across every genre, from bestsellers and new releases like The Butcher and the Wren, to celebrity memoirs, mysteries and thrillers, motivation, wellness, business, and more. There's really something for everybody. You'll discover exclusive Audible originals from top celebrities, renowned experts, and exciting new voices in audio. As an Audible member, you can choose one title a month to keep from their entire catalog, including the latest bestsellers like The Butcher and the Wren, and new releases. All Audible members get access to a growing selection of audiobooks, Audible originals, and podcasts like Morbid that are included with every membership. You can listen to all that you want and more get added every single month. Personally, I think it's so much easier sometimes when you have like a really packed schedule to listen to a book versus read it, because you might not always have the time, although I do really miss reading. But you still get that like fun feeling of starting a new book with Audible, and that's what I really like about it. Let Audible help you discover new ways to laugh, be inspired, or be entertained. New members can try it free for 30 days. Visit audible.com/morbid or text morbid to 500-500. That's audible.com/morbid or text morbid to 500-500 to try Audible free for 30 days. audible.com/morbid. The best time to prepare for growth is before the opportunity even arrives, especially for online businesses. ShipStation sets you up for growth by directly integrating with every shopping cart and storefront so that your products are easier to find, easier to manage, and easier to get in the hands of your happy customers. Don't wait. Do not wait until you're drowning in orders to find the right shipping solution. Upgrade to ShipStation today. Things are going to start getting pretty hectic coming up because weirdly enough, the holidays are coming. How crazy is that? So it's time to get organized, and ShipStation is the best place to get organized with. Whether you're starting small or whether you're scaling up, it doesn't matter. ShipStation makes ship happen, and I love that they say that. I think that's so silly. No more limiting your business to one store. You're not going to have all the sales you could possibly have if you're just selling from one store, and that's why ShipStation integrates with every platform, including Amazon, Etsy, eBay, Shopify, etc. It makes it super easy to manage all your shipping from one simple dashboard, and then you're probably going to get more sales because you're selling on more places. Maximize your sales with minimal effort. That's ideal. Save time with consolidated order management and automated shipping updates for your customers. How great is that? You don't even have to answer the messages. Easily compare carriers, rates, and delivery times to get the most out of every send. Get the same discounted shipping rates as Fortune 500 companies. Can you imagine? Whether you're sending a stack or a truck full, it doesn't matter. Join the over 130,000 companies who have grown with their e-commerce business with ShipStation. 98% of companies that use ShipStation for just 1 year become customers for life. I mean, companies like Chubby Short, Sock Club, I want to join that club, Conscious Box, Latched Mama, and Passion Planner. Those all sound wonderful. Oh, and freaking Wolfgang Puck Home. I love Wolfgang Puck. Ship more and grow more with ShipStation. Go to ShipStation.com today and sign up with promo code Morbid for a free 60-day trial. Start today and get set up before the biggest shipping season of the year. That's 2 months free. Visit ShipStation.com, click the microphone at the top, and type in code Morbid.
Two police officers responded to the scene that morning, of the actual 911 call, within 3 minutes of that call.
Great.
One was Officer Rick French. Now, according to Foreign Faction by James Kolar, which is a really great book about this case, so the police officers on scene noted that, and again, this is 3 minutes after the 911 call. Mm-hmm. So this is barely 6 o'clock.
Yeah.
According to the book, the police officer said that John Ramsey was wearing a pinstripe button-up and khakis, and Patsy was wearing black slacks, a red sweater, and her hair and makeup were done.
Oh.
I know everyone handles things differently, but I could not get dressed or do makeup when my 6-year-old was supposedly kidnapped from her bedroom.
No, the makeup is...
That's...
And did she say previously that when she had woken up, she put makeup on?
She didn't say that. I heard that she woke up, she brushed her
teeth.
teeth. Maybe she just didn't say that she did her full routine before walking down the stairs.
Okay.
And that is a possibility. Some people are early risers and they get everything done before they even walk down the stairs.
Yeah. And like, we don't know how much makeup she was wearing.
Yeah.
Like, yada, yada, yada. Just to, you know.
Yeah, the whole point of this is to give both sides and let you guys decide for yourselves what your theory is, because again, we don't know. We don't have a definitive answer here. But strange. Definitely a strange look for everybody to be fully done up when
But
this
you
is
know,
happening.
like, I just have to say it. Rich people are weird. Like,
Rich people are weird,
They
so that
want
makes
to put
sense.
like appearances first, so maybe it was like a respect thing.
And
even.
she's a pageant gal.
And they're Southern too, so it may have very much been a respect thing. Like, these people are coming into our home, we need to be dressed.
Well, and maybe that it wasn't even for the police. Maybe this is just, she's a
they
pageant
are.
gal. She gets up early.
She gets
her
done.
full shit done, and she doesn't walk down the stairs before she looks A+.
And we don't know. John may have been getting dressed as Patsy ran in and told him what was happening.
Yeah.
And he just maybe finished getting dressed.
Maybe he was in the middle of getting dressed when
We
that
have
happened.
no idea.
We don't know, and both sides are valid arguments.
But if not, if we did know and like they did get dressed after
That's weird to
calling
me.
the 911
That's
call,
weird.
I agree that's fucking
yeah,
weird.
that's weird. So there's that. And they noted that was strange.
Absolutely.
That was strange to the police officers.
Yeah.
Now, Patsy told Rick French that she had gone to JonBenet's bedroom and saw that she was not in it as soon as she woke up.
Which is not what she had originally
And then she said she had gone downstairs and found the ransom note. That's not what she said. And we're going to get back to that in a second. Now, Sergeant Paul Reichenbach showed up and ordered that no one use the police frequency just in case the kidnappers were listening on scanners.
Okay.
So they were like, we don't want to alert them that
Because
we
this
are
is
here because
dangerous.
that is part of the whole thing. So no one use frequencies to talk about this. They just didn't want to risk JonBenet's safety because at this point, this is a kidnapping. Mm-hmm. So they searched around the home, but they didn't find anything suspicious or any signs of forced entry anywhere. And everybody claimed we locked all the doors. Everything was locked. And John Ramsey said that we locked everything. It was all locked last night.
Yeah.
Nothing was unlocked when they came in. So Officer Rick French went into the basement and he went through. He came across a second door down there that ended up leading into a little wine cellar. And it had a wooden latch that locked it. And he said he stopped in front of the door, but never opened it.
Uh-huh.
Instead, he went back upstairs. JonBenet was behind that door the entire time. Why didn't he go into that door? The worlds may never fucking know.
Yeah.
I don't understand that at all.
What you are searching the whole entire home.
There's a missing child, but then he came out later and said, well, this was a kidnapping. We didn't think she was in the home. And it's like, but the problem is you're going in with preconceived ideas. Like, you're supposed to let the scene speak to you, not you speak for the scene.
Right.
And a forensic team arrived and we're starting to like do the sweep. And at this time, again, everyone was assuming she was abducted and removed from the home. So they only cordoned off her bedroom.
Right.
Which would have been where she would have been stolen from, obviously. I understand, again, the initial logic of this thinking that she was obviously taken from her bedroom.
Right.
But stop assuming shit at the crime scene. Let it tell you what's happening.
And sure, she's taken from her bedroom, but we don't know that that's where the note was written. And my assumption, I would assume it was written either like at the kitchen table or in the living room at the coffee table, like, you know?
This is what doesn't make sense to me. Exactly that. So you're assuming she was taken from her bedroom. Sure.
Absolutely.
Logical. The person had to walk through the house, which means there's tons of evidence that can be taken.
Exactly.
Had to stand in that kitchen and write that note, had to walk over to the staircase and put them there, and then walk somewhere else to get out. And you don't know how they got out because there's no signs of forced entry or exit. So you should be treating this entire house as a crime scene because you have no fucking clue how they got in or how they got that kid out.
Right.
Why the fuck would you only be looking at that bedroom?
Right.
You should be getting these people out of that fucking house and you should be cordoning off this
The
entire
whole
place.
home. Absolutely.
Wake that 9-year-old up, get him out of his fucking bedroom, get out of the house. It doesn't make any sense to me, this thought. And they're like, well, you know, no, that doesn't make any sense. That's botched as fuck. Now, this was the only murder in Boulder during this year.
Oh, wow.
So they were very unequipped. It's not like they were very used to handling this, but at the same time,
That is crazy.
use all your skills.
that this was the only murder in Boulder.
Yeah.
That's wild.
in this like area at that time. So they were very unequipped.
Yeah.
But in 2015, they spoke with the same cop that they talked to before in 2015, Beckner. He said, quote, "As for the police department in general, I wish we would have done a better job of securing and controlling the crime scene on day one. We also should have separated John and Patsy and gotten full statements from them that day."
That's like protocol. That's what's always done.
It would be 5 months before they interviewed the Ramseys after that day.
That's crazy.
Like, and they didn't separate them.
I've had experiences where like the police have had to come to my home when I was younger, and every single experience that I ever had with police, everybody in my home was separated, and it wasn't even about a kidnapping.
No.
Like,
That's just what you do.
every single time that's ever happened, every person in the home is spoken to separately.
Why would you not just pull the parents apart? There's 2 officers there at least at this point.
Right.
Pull them apart and say, what happened?
Right.
What happened this morning? And just take their quick statements.
Of course.
But no, they sat in front of both of them and were like, okay, what happened?
Yeah.
Like, no.
And they've had very different experiences that morning.
Exactly. That's the thing. Now, the rest of the house was just open season. No evidence protection, no nothing for the rest of the house. People just freely walking in and around, bringing things in and out. In fact, the Ramseys' best friends, the Whites and the Fernies, showed up because they called them their minister, and other family members showed up. In fact, Priscilla White started cleaning the fucking kitchen. No. Which is beyond my fucking comprehension.
Of course
If I walked into my friend's home whose daughter had been kidnapped that morning, I wouldn't be touching shit in that house.
No.
I'd be like, holy shit. I would just be focusing on her. And also, I'd be too scared that I'd be fucking something up. This is an active crime scene no matter what. There's police around here. Why the fuck are you cleaning the kitchen?
Yeah, that's weird.
That's crazy to me. Like, that's crazy behavior. What are you doing?
Yeah.
What the hell?
I'm trying to come up with something in my head just to like, oh, the other
That's
side.
just
but
me.
I
That's
don't-
just beyond my comprehension. That is just not a move I would make coming into a friend's house. That's a crime scene right now, but like, that's just me. And what is wild to me, even more wild to me, is that when Patsy called the Whites and the Fernies right after the 911 call, she didn't tell them JonBenet had been kidnapped. She just said, "I have an emergency. You need to come here."
What?
So they showed up and she was like, "JonBenet's missing." And they were like, "What the fuck?" Like, they were like, "That's the emergency?"
Like, you just need us to, like,
Like,
what?
why didn't you tell them that? Why would you just have them walk into that? That's so wild.
No, yeah, I don't.
There's no reason.
All I was going to say was, like, did she think the phone was tapped? But she called 911, so no.
Yeah, she already called.
That's bizarre.
So wild. Now, Barb Fernie, one of the family friends called to the home, talked to Patsy, and she asked her what happened when she found the ransom note.
Yeah.
And Patsy told her that she, quote, just handed the note to John first.
Okay.
But later, Patsy would tell police that she had screamed for John when she found the note. John was asleep on the 3rd floor, he claimed, so he wasn't getting dressed when the note was found. When she would have screamed, and he claimed he heard her, but somehow Burke, who was down the hall from her when she screamed, slept through all of this, didn't hear any of it.
Like, and we've said before, like, oh, kids will sleep through anything because, like, you know, it's not their problem.
Yeah.
If your mom is screaming, you're gonna wake up.
You're probably going to hear it. And it's in the morning. It's not like this is the middle of the night. This is the morning. Barb Fernie was like, why the fuck is this kid still asleep? Like, what's going on? It's mayhem in here. No one's checking on him.
I also, and this is just me, and this is an opinion, but I would want my child right next to me.
Exactly.
Right fucking next to me if my other child was missing.
That,
I would be clinging on to that boy for dear life.
thank you. That is part of something I don't understand. That's exactly how I would feel. I would be, you don't know what happened.
There could be somebody in the home still.
That's the thing. Someone came into your home unbeknownst to you while you slept and stole one of your children out of their bedrooms.
Right.
There is no fucking way my kid would be in their bedroom by themselves.
No.
How the fuck do you know that that window isn't how they're going to get in. How do you know they're not hiding in his closet right now?
That was
under his bed.
My exact thought was could be hiding in his closet.
I would be literally
clinging.
headlocking my child to me. Like nobody would be taking that kid away from
No.
So the fact that everything's going on and they don't even know what the fuck is happening with Burke in his bedroom,
No.
that's bizarre.
Yeah.
It's just a bizarre thing. It really, no one seemed concerned that the kidnapper was still in the house or how they got into the house and could they get back in.
Right.
And how do you know that kid's safe? That's just so weird. I don't understand that. But again, remember, they were supposed to make arrangements to get the money to pay the ransom. The kidnapper was going to call between 8 and 10.
Yes.
It was a window. So 8 a.m., Detective Linda Arndt arrived at the scene. Patsy told Detective Arndt that she had gone downstairs, found the ransom note, and then ran upstairs and found JonBenet missing. Uh-huh. This is, again, not the order that she has given. It has flip-flopped many times. So they were ready to, and again, that is something that can be, I'm hysterical, I don't remember what happened.
Yep.
But not the same. So they were ready to do the ransom exchange at the time given by the note. So they're sitting there, they have the phones are ready, they're tapped, they have the whole thing set up in a solarium, a little sunroom.
Yeah.
They're ready for this call, 8 to 10, they got to sit there. They want to make sure that it's tapped so they can trace it, all that. The 8 o'clock comes around, nothing happening. By 10, the deadline had passed for the money to be transferred. The ransom note writer never called. And Detective Arndt said that literally no one in the family noticed that the deadline came and went. No one asked about it.
Oh. That would be my first question. I would be panicking that they hadn't called yet. And I would also think, have they not called because I called the police and now my child has been beheaded?
But no one even noticed that it was 10 a.m. They were not even.
That is your, I don't even know what the word is. That is the biggest thing on the docket right now.
Oh, that's priority number one is that time frame. And if that passes, then it should be DEFCON 1.
Full blown.
Holy shit, what the fuck is going, what do we do now?
I would be hysterical.
Yeah, because what do you do now?
I would absolutely be hysterical. Because
what?
You would assume that they didn't, you would 100% assume, had you read that note, if they didn't call, they know all these people are at the house. I'm clearly
and they
being
killed my daughter.
Closely watched, and they killed my daughter.
That's what I would think. Now, John Ramsey also left the room that had the tapped phone in it 3 different times. Mm-hmm. And when it rang for something unrelated during the time frame, someone else called, he had to run back in the room to answer it. And the detectives there were like, why would he leave the room? Because if they called, why would you have to want to run from another room and possibly miss the call? Uh-huh. Wouldn't you just be locked to that, just waiting for it? So you could grab it immediately?
I would, yes. The only thing I could potentially look at differently is maybe he could not handle the pressure of sitting there looking at that telephone waiting and knew that he would run back in and get the call.
And that is something I can understand too.
Right.
That it's too much. And they did say that he was totally just panic stricken.
Okay.
He was pacing around. He couldn't sit still. He was he wasn't just sitting there
So I think that is probably
so that could absolutely be part of it. Now, Officer French made a sweep through the house. Fleet White made his first, he made a sweep through the house. He didn't find anything. Fleet White went down to the basement for the first time. Uh-huh. They're just allowing people to walk through this house. I just want to point that out. They're just
So
sure,
bizarre.
go down to the basement. And he said later, Fleet White said he, quote, observed the window to be closed, but unlatched and left it in that condition. So there was an unlatched window down in the basement. And it was the middle window. There was these 3 windows, a basement window, you know what I mean? That has a grate and everything that is from the floor. Now, according to Foreign Faction, Fleet White is the only one who, while walking around searching, because people were searching for her, including John Ramsey.
Yeah.
He's the only one who called out JonBenet's name while searching for her. No one else did.
Yeah.
And he was like that, because I guess his daughter, Fleet White, he had a daughter around JonBenet's age.
Yeah.
And he said, a couple of years before that, or some months or something like that, they actually had to call 911 because they couldn't find their daughter, and it was she was hidden in
She
the
was,
house.
like, hiding,
She was
like,
like playing
being
hide and
silly.
seek. So he said that was on his mind.
Right.
So he was calling for her, being like, hopefully she'll just come out.
Yeah.
Because he was like, JonBenet, you're scaring everybody. Please come out. Like,
Right.
you know, we're here. Like, we just want to see you. But no one else was calling her name.
And that's bizarre because we've had that experience before where like one of your kids will like, run in the house and,
Yeah, and play
we're
hide
like,
and
what the
seek.
fuck? And we're screaming their name, like fully panicked.
Yeah. And he said when he went down to the basement and he saw that unlatched window, and he said he didn't touch it, but he said he saw the wine cellar door with the wooden latch on it. And he said he opened that. And he said he looked in, but it was pitch black. And so he said he was looking for a light. And he said he actually stepped into the wine cellar and was like feeling around. And he said, I looked through the darkness and I didn't see anything. I couldn't see a form. I couldn't see anything. And I was like squinting, trying to find a light. And he's like, but I didn't want to go too far in there. I didn't know where a light was.
Yeah.
So he's like, so I just left because
That's
I didn't see
so-
anything.
That's so haunting when you know that JonBenet was
she was
in there.
right there.
That's
Now,
terrible.
John Ramsey gave, at this point, the police had John and Patsy give handwriting samples right away because they wanted to pass them off. And Detective Jeff Kithhart, who was the handwriting and fraud expert, he was the one who said later, like, this is a little strange.
Alarm bells.
He was the one that found the practice at this point. He found the practice ransom note. And he said whoever had written the ransom note clearly had started it a few times in that notebook, which is very strange. Now, 10 a.m. came. Again, the call didn't come. So John went down to the basement. Again, why is this happening? Why are we allowing people to just keep searching? Like civilians. Why are we
One-
allowing this without a police officer with him?
He's now the third person to go in the basement. Why is
Yeah.
everybody continuously going to the basement?
Yeah. And while he was down there, he mentioned that there was a broken window and it was open. And just under it was a suitcase that had been set up. But he later said that he actually broke that window accidentally because he got locked out
Oh, okay.
like a few weeks prior and they just hadn't gotten it fixed. Always get those fixed.
Yeah, because that's like a big deal,
It's
man.
a big security issue. Now, he closed the window when he went down there and just went back upstairs.
You would go upstairs and say,
By the way,
that window was open. I just realized that is potentially how this person got into my home.
but then later in a crime scene video, you can see that the middle window down there is open again. And this is after John Ramsey said he latched it closed. It's a strange inconsistency.
That's weird.
With all of it. Now, at some point during the day, Fleet White drove Burke to his home. They woke Burke up,
Yeah.
drove Burke to Fleet's home to stay with his family during the chaos. They wanted to get him out of the scene because they were like, who knows what's going to happen here? You need to get out of here.
Yeah.
So around 1 p.m., Detective Arndt asked John Ramsey and Fleet White, who had come back at this point, to search the house for anything that seemed amiss.
Okay.
At first, I was like, what? Why are you asking two civilian men to search the house? Like, why are you asking them to? You're a detective.
Yeah.
What is going on? I did read that they said it was just an attempt to try to give John Ramsey something to do because he seemed like he was losing it.
Okay.
Like he was frantically pacing around, and she was like, I needed him to have something to focus on.
Okay.
Because he was losing it. I don't think that's a great... I think that was probably a regrettable decision on their part. Also, she told him and White to search the house from, quote, top to bottom. And he went straight for the basement.
Okay.
Could be preference. Could be that he was like, I'm going to start at the bottom and end at the top.
Yeah.
You're already on the top. You're already in the middle floor. So you might as well just go to the top and end at the bottom, I would think. But that's me.
Yeah.
You know? So they started in the basement to work their way up. And this was both of their second trips down to the basement at this point. Now, again, the first trips where they went solo.
Yep.
When they went down together, Fleet saw the broken part of the window and he was like, oh, I didn't notice that the first time. Like, there's a broken window. And Ramsey was like, oh, I was locked out. I broke it. And he was like,
Yeah,
you
but,
should
like,
tell people. Like
that's how somebody could have gotten in.
That's pretty, like, what the fuck? And he was like, oh, yeah, it's fine. And he said, now... This is weird, too, because later, I guess police said it was not clear from either of the men's later interviews with the authorities whether they had opened the middle window. So it's weird that it was in the crime scene photo, it's open.
Yeah.
Neither one of them would say that they opened it.
And why would you open it?
It's just really weird. John opened that wooden latch door to the wine cellar, John Ramsey. This is when he found his daughter, JonBenet, was lying on the ground with a white blanket over her torso. Her hands or arms were over her head. This is really rough, by the way, guys.
Yeah.
There was a nylon cord around them, her wrists and her neck. There was duct tape over her mouth. She was wearing the long white T-shirt with a silver sequin star on it and long white Long John style leggings. The cord around her neck was pulled incredibly tight to the point that John couldn't even initially see it around her neck.
Oh, wow.
It was so like indented. It was pulled with a garrote made from a broken paintbrush handle, later found to be taken from Patsy's paint kit, which was outside of the wine cellar doorway. The other part of the broken brush was found in the room as well on the floor. Now, Fleet White, because John had turned on the light, so Fleet now saw what was in front of him. He took off running upstairs, yelling for someone to call an ambulance.
Yeah.
John Ramsey immediately pulled the tape off of JonBenet's mouth and untied some of the cords on her wrist. I get this.
I absolutely 100
No one
million
should fault
percent.
him for
No,
that.
No.
That's not, no question in my mind. I would pull the tape
You
off.
wouldn't be thinking of forensics in that moment.
No.
You would think, oh my God, get this off my baby.
I need to get this shit off my baby.
Exactly.
Like these cords around her wrists and this thing, like, yeah, I get it. Now, Fleet White later said he searched that room before this. He mentioned to them, he's like, I actually looked there. And he said that he swore that John yelled, oh my God, before turning on the light. Now, John Ramsey told police later that you could clearly see the blanket, the white blanket, even without a light. He saw the form of the blanket, and that's why he yelled, oh my God.
And he knows his home a little bit better, I will
Yeah,
say.
there's that.
I get that a little bit.
Now, Fleet White, his best friend, said no. He said, I stepped into that room a bit to try to find that light, and I didn't see anything.
Now a word from our sponsor, BetterHelp. I think a lot of times, guys, I've been talking to you about this lately. A lot of us focus on our problems and we're like, I'm so sad and everything's wrong. And we don't worry about our solutions, how we're going to fix it, how we're going to start to get better. It can be tough to train your brain to stay in problem-solving mode, and you don't really want to when you're faced with a challenge in life. But when you learn how to find your own solutions, there's really no better feeling. A therapist can help you become a better problem solver, which is going to make it easier to accomplish your goals no matter how big or small they are. Me personally, I love being in therapy because I feel like it's my 1 hour a week just to go talk to somebody about all my problems. I can let everything out from the week. I definitely recommend a Friday appointment. I think it's perfect because you're like, wow, all of this happened this week. Please tell me how to deal with it. And they can just give you a little guidance, give you a little insight on how you can better approach certain situations in your life. And for me personally, I know I've learned, again, how to approach those situations, which then, you avoid having a big blow up, if you know what I mean. If you're still thinking about giving therapy a try, BetterHelp is a great option. It's convenient, accessible, affordable, and it's entirely online. Get matched with a therapist after filling out a brief survey and switch therapists at any time. When you want to be a better problem solver, therapy can get you there. Visit betterhelp.com/morbid today to get 10% off your first month. That's betterhelp.com/morbid.
Later, investigators did a test on this room to see if they could see. None of them could see the blanket in the dark.
Okay.
So there's that.
Yeah.
John Ramsey picked JonBenet up and ran with her screaming up the stairs. Now, Priscilla White was with Patsy in the sunroom when this occurred. She heard John and left the room to see what happened, but Patsy didn't follow her.
Oh.
So Fleet White has run up the stairs yelling, we need an ambulance.
Uh-huh.
Wouldn't that startle you?
Yep.
Because you're wondering, have they found JonBenet? Or did something happen to John? Did he have a heart attack down there?
Yeah.
Do we need an ambulance because he's having a heart attack? I would be like, she didn't move.
Yeah.
So once John had come upstairs, he placed JonBenet down on the ground in the hallway and kept saying, according to everybody around them, he kept saying over and over, my angel, which breaks my heart.
Of course.
And then strangely, Detective Arndt picked JonBenet up and moved her again, placing her at the bottom of the Christmas tree.
That's very
The detective.
bizarre. That's very bizarre.
Why? Why did any of this happen?
I do not know.
Once she was moved there, a blanket was placed on top of her, and also a Colorado Avalanche a sweatshirt was placed over where her feet were to cover them. Like family members were doing that. This is so bad for a crime scene. Like, this has been so fucking contaminated. Mm-hmm. You should have just left her where John had put her.
Right.
I know it's hard. I know you got to leave what's happening here so that they can collect what they can. Patsy was brought in to the room, unable to walk herself. They were holding her up, and she threw herself on top of JonBenet and just sobbed.
Okay.
And she was screaming like, Lazarus, you raised whatever, and like, please raise my baby from the dead, like screaming. And her, like, the minister was there, obviously, and they're very religious, so it makes sense. But she was like inconsolable. Now, according to the Foreign Faction book, Father Hulverstack, the pastor.
Sorry, is there a difference between the pastor and the minister?
I'm sorry, I'm probably using those things interchangeably, and I apologize. He's called a pastor in some things and a minister in others.
Okay.
I'm not sure what the difference is, and again, I apologize.
Oh,
if I
no,
was
you're
using
fine.
Those
I didn't know if there were like two separate
but it is one
fathers.
person.
Okay.
I'll just tell you that it's one person. Father Hulverstock. He remembered John Ramsey saying something like, quote, I don't think he meant to kill her because she's wrapped in a blanket. Or that, quote, she was warm, she was wrapped in a blanket. Uh-huh. So I don't know if, like, he just mentioned that to police, that he heard that.
Why would you say, I don't think he meant to kill her when you were left that ransom note?
She has duct tape over her mouth and cord on her wrists that you pulled off.
Right.
Why are you giving them anything? Any kind of humanity at all? I would never be like, these people didn't mean to kill her. I'd be like, these people are fucking monsters, and I'm going to hunt them down myself.
Well, and the note said that they had every intention of killing her
Exactly.
if you did not follow their rules.
So Fleet White then went back downstairs to the wine cellar. Again,
That's a crime scene.
she was just found
That's
in the wine
actually
cellar.
the crimiest of all crime
That's
scenes.
the place that we are looking at right now.
Right.
He went back down by himself where she was found. He collected the duct tape, cord, and blanket. There is a crime scene photo after this point that shows the middle window downstairs wide open at this point. He took all those things back upstairs and brought it to the police.
Right.
Why is he collecting crime scene evidence, everybody? What's happening?
Well, and I wouldn't want to, I think Fleet was just trying to be helpful, but me personally, I wouldn't want to touch that shit.
I would never touch that
gonna
shit.
be on that.
I would never touch that shit. That would definitely not be mine.
Again, we have knowledge that tells us not to.
Yeah,
you know?
and it's like, but I don't know. And I more fault the detectives
Oh, I'm
for
not faulting
allowing
Fleet.
this to happen, you
Yeah.
know? It's very strange. Now, the window is also a strange thing. There's no sign of disturbance on the window pane. There was dust, dirt, and even cobwebs, like spider webs, that had remained undisturbed.
Yeah.
Like if someone had slid into that window from the outside, they didn't even touch anything on the windowsill with any part of their body
Which
or
is
clothing.
impossible.
And even outside the window, there was no evidence someone had stood there or walked up to it.
No.
It appeared like it had been opened from the inside and no one had actually gone through it.
Uh-huh.
So that's strange. They searched the basement. They found the paintbrush garrote. They also found the broken window and the suitcase on the ground. There were some markings around the window, like scuff marks. But there, again, no disturbances on the windowsill itself.
And is that where John just had gotten in himself?
That's what they assumed, that those were just from him. And the reason there was no disturbance on the windowsill was it was weeks earlier that he had done that, so dust had collected.
Right.
And that cobweb had formed. Now, at around 1:30 p.m., one of the detectives, I believe it was Detective French, actually, heard John Ramsey on the phone. This is after JonBenet has been brought upstairs.
Underneath
Everything
the
has been
Christmas
found.
tree.
He's on the phone, heard by detectives, booking a plane trip to Atlanta for him, Patsy, and Burke. The detective then informed him,
You cannot leave
You
the
can't
city or
leave?
state anything.
and he said, I have a meeting that I can't miss. And they were like,
You're gonna be
your
able to
6-year-old
take that?
was murdered in your fucking house. You can't leave. And it's weird that I have to tell you that.
Yeah. It's weird that you think you would even be capable of taking that meeting.
That is the excuse of all excuses to call out of work. Like,
Yup.
that's beyond. Like that, I understand that like some people go into like just I gotta
Autopilot.
truck, yeah, like autopilot. That
That's not
you're booking a private plane out of here as soon as your kid was found. The fuck? Like, what are you doing? That's weird. Like, that's weird.
No matter how you slice it, that's weird.
So Patsy and John provided hair and blood samples right away. And they, along with Burke, were spoken to briefly by police after this. But the medical examiner, John Meyer, didn't get there until 8 p.m.
Wow.
Why? Don't know.
Okay.
His report states that he found her in the living room with a blanket and that sweatshirt on top of her. The autopsy was performed the next morning. The time of death was stated to be between 10 p.m. the night before and 6 a.m. that morning. Now, it's believed this is probably closer to the 10 p.m. hour because decomposition had begun.
Oh, wow.
Several injuries could have caused death. Strangulation and a skull fracture killed JonBenet. The official cause of death was listed as asphyxia by strangulation associated with cranocerebral trauma. Now, there wasn't conclusive evidence of a rape, but there was questions related to whether she had been sexually assaulted in some way.
That's horrific.
Blood was found in her underwear that she was wearing. Like just tiny little like pinpoints of it, but still
weird.
There. Closer inspection revealed that JonBenet had marks on her back and neck that looked like they could have possibly been made with the prongs of a stun gun.
What?
Yeah. Now, it was noted several times that the cords around her wrist were very loosely tied. In fact, they didn't even make marks on her skin. That's how loose they were. The cord around her neck, though, was so deep that it had made a very brutal indent in her skin. There was notable petechial hemorrhages in her eyes, showing that she was, in fact, alive when she was garroted.
That's horrible.
But the hope is that she was unconscious from the blow to the head.
Yeah.
Now, a bruise on the front of her throat was also really strange. It's slightly triangular and the size is about a quarter. And there's all these sources that say that they believe it's, that like analysts have said that they believe it was like her shirt was caught up in the garrote. It had like knotted.
Okay.
And pressed into her skin and just caused that.
Okay.
Sure.
I could see that.
Like we'll say, but it wasn't caught in it when they found it. So that was interesting. Now, they also found, according to the official report, and this really broke my heart, a red ink line drawing in the form of a heart located on the palm of her left hand, like a little kid just drawing.
Yeah.
What they discovered through this autopsy was that she had been, and this is rough, just trigger warning, sexual assault. She had likely been sexually assaulted with a paintbrush handle at the time or after death. They also found evidence that she could have possibly been sexually assaulted more times before that night.
Mm-hmm. I remember the doctor had made
like
notes.
Weeks or months before. There were several experts and physicians who all conclusively agreed on this fact.
That's so sad.
Her pediatrician says they never found anything amiss and that she had visited like 30 something times in the past like 3 years or something like that. Mm-hmm. And that they never questioned or were worried about that. But who knows?
Well, yeah.
Now, the cords were very interesting for other reasons, too. The cord that was wrapped around the homemade garrote and then around her neck was from a new roll of cord. It was white cord. They knew this because you know how new cord or rope will have like a melted end?
Yeah.
Almost like there's like glue on the end or something.
Like an anglet.
Like it's a very like smooth end. Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's what was on the garrote. But the rest of the cords on her wrist were frayed and clearly cut, like roughly cut. So this led them to believe that the garrote was made first. Mm-hmm. And then the cords were tied around her wrist, which would make it staged. Mm-hmm. Because it would also explain why those were so loose, because there was no reason for them to be tight.
Right. And we believe she's unconscious anyway when she was garroted, so
it doesn't really, that's all staged. Now, there was mucus that had come from JonBenet's nose that will happen during strangulation and down her face and lips. Like it had gone down. This happens during death, especially strangulation and a blunt force trauma to the head. they noted that the outlines of the duct tape were on top of the mucus trail, meaning the duct tape was placed on her mouth when she was at the very least unconscious, but more likely when she was dead.
Okay.
Because the mucus was under the tape.
Right.
So that had already happened.
Right, like she'd already been strangled.
There was also an imprint, according to Foreign Faction, that was very clear on the sticky side of the tape, and the imprint was JonBenet's lips. But they were perfect. It wasn't smeared. It wasn't
Like she wasn't yelling.
Nope. Dead lips. That's what that was.
Wow, this is like really terrible.
Which says staged. There's no reason for that to be on there. But there was DNA evidence found in her underwear and on her waistband. And it did not match any of the Ramseys.
Okay.
So there's that. We're going to talk about that more in part 2. But at this time, after the autopsy, the Ramseys went to Georgia and refused to speak to the police.
They did go to Georgia.
It was after all the autopsy was
cleared.
done and everything, and they were allowed to. They went to Georgia just to get away from, I think, the house, which again, parts of that you can understand. I want to get the hell out of here. But then they hired a huge team of lawyers. Again, we all say, like, when anybody's get a lawyer, because that's the first thing you should do. But then they hired a PR firm. Okay. Again, Boulder Police Chief Tom Kobe told the public at this point that there was no threat to them, no threat to the public, and that this was an isolated incident. What?
So there's no kidnapper
How
on the
do you
loose,
know
is
that?
what you're telling me?
What says that? What are you talking about? A kid was just murdered in her house.
And we don't know who did it.
And everybody in the neighborhood was like, we were fucking terrified.
Of course.
Like, we were terrified. Like, somebody had broken into their house and killed their kid in the middle of the night. And
there's
you're
no
telling
public
us there's
threat?
no threat? What does that mean?
You got to explain that, man.
Now, we are going to end part 1 here. I'm sure people are like, what about the pineapple? Don't worry, we're going to talk about the pineapple in part 2.
Okay.
We're going to talk about the pineapple, which I'm sure some of you might know about. Some of you are probably like, what the fuck are you talking about, the pineapple? It's a big deal.
It's huge.
We're going to talk about the flashlight. We're going to talk about the suspects. And we're going to talk about the theories
All right.
in part 2. But that is part 1 of JonBenet Ramsey. Hopefully this time around it's a more, I wanted to make it a more cohesive and easy to follow narrative than before. I thought I jumped around too much last time. And we're also not underwater this time, so
Yay.
you can probably hear it better.
No, that was great. Well, it was horrific, but it was.
You could follow it, though.
I think I don't want to say I think you did a much better job because I thought you did great last time.
Well, thank
but
you.
I think it was definitely. I think you've growth.
Thank you. I think you've growth.
I think you've growth.
But yeah, this is a rough one. Part 2, we're really going to get into the nitty gritty of all the theories and suspects. And that pineapple thing is a real interesting bone of contention for a lot of people, as is the flashlight. So,
Yep.
but what we're not going to do is get sued
Nope.
by Schmerp Schmamsey. So I'm not going to say anything.
Nope. And with that being said, we hope you keep listening.
And we hope you
Keep
it
weird.
weird.
Just don't keep it that weird.